By the way, if you make it to the last clip in this video today, grab yourself a cup of coffee and a notepad, you're gonna need it. It is a heavy one. Nice short one to begin with. That architecture is profound, isn't it? The Knights Templar say that there is actually a lot of hidden symbology embedded in the actual architectural design of all those buildings, and those with the eye for it will be able to see it. I've not been able to verify that claim, but it makes me want to go and investigate these things firsthand. Let me know what you've seen if you've ever visited any of these sacred sites.
Hold up, what? What is going on here? This is apparently Martha the Haunted Doll, and there's legit bones in her, so no wonder she's haunted. If she was made with bones in her, yeah, that's a haunted doll. Do people not watch horror movies? You know what? If she disappears, we know it was this doll.
Is that some kind of voodoo doll or something? Who puts bones inside of a doll? Wild. Not haunted, just plain disgusting. Give that thing a wash. Or better yet, chuck it in the bin. Clearly seen better days. Let's just hope they never gave that to a child, because I imagine they'll need therapy for the rest of their life.
Gravity itself is an autonomous acceleration, of which a lot of people call it incorrectly a force, does not exist. It's like, what do you mean gravity doesn't exist? All of a sudden, this and there's gravity. And what I mean specifically is that gravity does not exist. It's definitely not a force, which of course even the idiots of general relativity and quantum mechanics will admit to. They call it an acceleration, but an acceleration of what by what? We need explanations, not descriptions. It is a dielectric acceleration. It's dielectric avoidance. It's the loss of force and motion, because there are no straight lines in the universe. What we think are straight lines in the universe are infinitely, slightly curved. We have one field, we have the loss of that field expressed as force and motion, and we have two field modalities. One expressed as a dielectric condensate, which we call matter, mass, and the other one, which is expressed by longitudinal transverse force and motion, transverse electromagnetism expressed in frequency and amplitude, what we call electricity. So dielectricity, electrostatics, electricity, magnetism, and quote-unquote gravity are one thing only.
I think one of the most important things to remember is that gravity is still a theory. Whether it is directly a result of the density of an object, we don't know. Maybe it's just the effects of magnetism and buoyancy. Ever since that podcast with Joe Rogan and Terrence Howard, some of the comments that he made have created so much division. I'm not looking to bring that kind of negative energy into my comment section, but I would very much like to hear your opinions on the matter. Share your thoughts in the comments below.
What if Eve wasn't Adam's first wife? The shocking truth about Lilith. Adam's first wife wasn't Eve. Lilith refused to be submissive, demanding equality. God and Adam were furious. In a twist, Lilith fled Eden, becoming the first rebel. But here's the kicker. She didn't just disappear. Lilith transformed into a powerful demon, vowing revenge on Adam's descendants. Centuries passed, and Lilith's influence grew. Some say she whispers temptations to this day, causing chaos in relationships. But wait, there's more. Ancient texts suggest Lilith might be humanity's secret protector, guarding us from darker forces. Now, researchers have uncovered evidence that Lilith's story was erased from religious texts. Why? What were they hiding? As we unravel this mystery, one question remains. Is Lilith a villain, a misunderstood hero, or something in between? The truth about Adam's first wife may change everything you thought you knew about human origin.
Supposedly, this story is derived from Jewish mysticism and folklore, specifically the alphabet of Ben Sira, from within the 8th and 10th centuries AD. And in that account, Lilith is depicted as described in that video clip. As far as human lineage, do you think we're descendants of Lilith and Adam? Do you think maybe some of us are, and others from Adam and Eve? Or do you believe something completely different? Let me know in the comments below.
The truth about Adam's first wife may change everything you thought you knew about human origins.
Have you heard of that new company called Friend? It's a startup company, or not startup, they're pre-selling this product. And the owner of it, he went out
1.5 million for the website.
For the website, friend.com. And what it is it's a necklace, but it's AI. And it's called Friend because you talk to it and interact with it and it texts you. So like, you'd be like, what do you think about this? And I'd be like, I don't know how I feel about that. You can like change the settings to be like more like empathetic or like gossipy.
Or flirty.
Or bros, like where like they just like, you know, they make fun back and forth. Like during the commercial, like it's like a guy loses at a game and it basically is like, hey, you know, you suck, basically. Like just like kind of like just playing being friendly and stuff, but it's like really strange because you give it access to your camera, and so it'll say, hey, how's that Subway sandwich going?
So it's observing your life. You're literally giving
Everything.
access to everything.
Inside jokes. I mean, you're wearing it around work, and imagine what it's picking up. Like, it's a crazy thing. It's her just around your neck now. I mean, like, obviously this is where we're headed.
Imploding as a society.
Well, it's only $100.
We are the most connected technologically than we have ever been, yet the most disconnected socially than we have ever been. It's crazy. And this type of technology is only going to further that divide. People are going to become more conditioned to interact with something which is completely artificial versus someone real. Flirting, empathy, just an illusion. It's not based on anything real, it's just programming, but people will become hooked on it. Very slippery slope. You going to get one of these? Let me know in the comments below.
The term ghost forest might sound ridiculous and completely made up, but in fact it is 100% real. So this slideshow starts off by drawing attention to ghost forests, saying that they're spreading at an alarming rate, then shows a couple comparisons, one between 2012 and 2023, and a couple other images of ghost forests. Now, unlike what the name suggests, ghost forests do not have anything to do with paranormal activity. In fact, a ghost forest is essentially a forest that has completely died. None of the trees are no longer alive. And many ghost forests are commonly caused by an increase in sea level, so indirectly this is a pretty good indicator for climate change, a rise in sea level. Salt water will end up killing off these trees by the thousands because it's too toxic and the trees can't survive with it. And another cause that might potentially be creating ghost forests are shifting tectonic plates, where it changes the elevation. Currently, they are spreading at a much faster rate, so many of you guys have probably experienced or at least seen ghost forests before, but this is what they are.
Now this raises a question for me, completely separate from this video, but it's the second video now where I've heard about salt acting as some kind of toxin. There was another video that we saw where someone said that table salt is a poison, and now we're hearing that the sea will kill these trees and cause these ghost forests. Now I know we're supposed to moderate our salt intake on a daily basis. We can't overdo it, otherwise it will cause various heart issues, etc. But are we supposed to even have any salt? I know there's certain minerals which we need which can be found in salt. For instance, when I distill water, I have to reintroduce the natural trace minerals to it to make it drinkable again, because supposedly drinking pure distilled water in the long run is not good for you. It will start to leach nutrition, etc. from your body rather than introducing it back there. Very much like to have some clarity on this one. If you've got any info for me, let me know in the comments below.
13 M. Why is McDonald's M everywhere? Why? Why is that? Why subconsciously do you think of M and 13 everywhere? Because you know inside yourself, when you see that, that means you know really you're coming back again. And that's alright. And that's fine. Come back again and do it. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with coming back again. Because there isn't anything wrong with good or bad. Come back and do it again. I just don't want to do it. I have something else to do. Numerology is very important. The Kabbalah cheats. The Kabbalistic magicians cheats. He cheated. They cheated. Sephiroth cheated.
That little clip there looked like it was about to go well deep. Unfortunately, we don't have the rest of it. Kabbalistic magicians cheated Sephiroth, and the number 13's got something to do with returning back here. Now, this sounds like reincarnation. If reincarnation is real, I can tell you now that I sure as hell do not want to come back here. Me and the energy that I believe I'm bound to, we ain't coming back if we can help it. I'm done with this dimension. But either way, in all seriousness, since I gave up all processed food and everything else, I've actually started to notice that advertisement for that food has been getting progressively less and less in my face. Maybe the system's finally learned that I won't crack and I'm sticking to my organic diet. Who knows? What do you think about the whole idea of reincarnation? I know some people, if they believe in it, they believe that they've got to come back because their mission hasn't been fulfilled yet. There's so many perspectives to take on this. Hopefully we'll come across some more videos in the future which pertain to reincarnation. It's a fascinating subject.
You want something that's going to blow your mind? So this area right here, we discussed this last time as being water ripples.
Mm-hmm.
I've measured these more than 3,000 feet to 6,600 feet in between each ripple and more than 200 feet high.
Wow.
So if these are indeed caused from like ripples like you see on the beach from catastrophic flooding, this is a force of water that is truly, it goes beyond the mind's comprehension. It's something that I don't think we could even understand. But if you pan out, people have to understand that this is a couple hundred miles from one side to the other. This would have been a force of flood water that I think goes beyond anything we could have thought possible. I think this is why scientists have somehow missed it, because I don't know how to say this, but no one else seems to be talking about this.
Now, the structure that you think is Atlantis, how tall are those concentric rings?
So it is the entire structure from one side to the other is nearly 30 miles, but the interior structure of the concentric circles is 16 miles.
Jimmy Corsetti describes as evidence for a catastrophic flood that wiped out this lost city thousands of years ago. Is this clear enough evidence of Atlantis? Do these structures represent what was once the lost ancient civilization? I'll let you decide in the comments.
Jimmy Corsetti on the Joe Rogan podcast. That's what I think I heard from there. I need to check out that little one. I need to check out that podcast. I absolutely love the idea of Atlantis. It's one of my favorite ones. It's one of my favorite theories. But isn't it fascinating how those ripples are so huge? Again, more evidence to lend itself to the idea that there was a great flood. I really hope we get to the bottom of this one day. I hope that I'm alive to see it.
The moon is empty. You can see on the new moon, you can see a ring, and there's black, and you can see it's a hole. Clearly, it's a hole. You go through it.
What do you think the planets are? They're light? It's not like dirt. Mars isn't like dirt?
Not.
Yeah, so they're not landing Mars rovers on Mars, right?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. What they're doing is they're going to places like Greenland with very, very exotic landscape, and they're making it look like it, and then they're colouring it to look red and what have you. If you go to Wikipedia, which I'm in now, and you look up under Saturn, in the first sentence it will tell you that Saturn is a gas giant, and then you go to Jupiter, it tells you that Jupiter is a gas giant.
Yeah.
Then you ask what the sun is, they say it's hydrogen and helium. Well, that's gas. Why is Venus or Mars or the moon where they landed, why is it an exception? You can see with your own eyes that it's a lie. Ptolemy, for thousands of years before the Jesuit Copernicus turned up and made a spinning ball, was saying all of the 7 planets are entirely luminous. They are portals.
Oh, you're telling me there's no moon there?
There is.
It's not a solid object?
It's a more attenuated transcendental material. What you are seeing there is the dance of the gods, the moon, the sun. These are gods. They are gods. They are archangels. The Jews, they'll tell you, in Kabbalah, they'll tell you the moon is Raphael, Mercury is Gabriel, etc. The sun is Michael.
I'm not allowed to say certain things, but this is how they hide everything. So if you want to understand what you are, where we are, this ebook will literally unveil that to you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but attenuated transcendental materials. Don't the terms attenuated and transcendental conflict with each other? That's a paradox, right? I will have to look that up. I've never heard of attenuated transcendental materials before. Sounds a little bit suspicious to me, but either way. Some very interesting ideas that young man was sharing. I definitely think there's something up with our moon, the stars as well. I'm not sure I can get behind the idea that he's sharing there. We need more sources for this information. Keep saying it. We've got to be able to do our own independent research so that we can find the truth. But as always, share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think? Is he onto something? Was he just making up stuff?
I hope this is true as well. I recently came into contact with someone who spent time at a military research base, McMurdo Station in Antarctica, right below South America, and he told me that he ventured deep into Antarctica and found green, lush land, and he also said that some of the stuff that I talk about on this account is true, and that he has seen land beyond the ice wall. I'm going to show you all the messages that he shared with me in just a moment, but I also have to let you know that I promised I wouldn't show his face on here. Now you can pause to read this if you want to, but the most prominent thing that he told me was that he saw a forest in Antarctica, and he also saw land beyond Antarctica, and that it resembled the Appalachian forest. And also that Antarctica loses 80% of its ice every year, but it doesn't cause mass flooding like lots of people think it would. So then I asked him if he's ever seen openings in the ice that are big enough for a boat to sail through, and he said that there are many historical documents going back to 650 AD of these sailors talking about this, that these gates aren't actually called the Summer's Gate or the Leviathan's Gate like we've seen on other maps, that are referenced to in the Bible with the 4 world rivers. But he says that there is an opening 100 nautical miles from the Union Glacier camp in Ellsworth, which is near McMurdo Station, which is the only place anybody ever goes in Antarctica. He says that he doesn't believe that there is a secret shadow government trying to prevent people from discovering all this, but the reason why people don't go and look for this land in Antarctica is just because it's so dangerous, and most people who do try to go there don't even make it back because the conditions are so harsh and it gets so cold. But yeah, that's everything that he told me. So what do you guys think? Is this story fact or fiction? And is there actually an ice wall that leads to secret continents?
Now, I know this is a trigger point for people who either believe in a flat earth or globe earth. I've already shared my perspective on that in the past, but I'll share it again for any new viewers. I am not a flat earther. I am not 100% sure we're on a globe though either, but one thing I feel pretty sure of is that the world is a lot bigger than we are led to believe. By how much? I don't know. Whether it's big enough to be able to hold vast continents beyond Antarctica, and we are encased in some kind of ice wall, again, I can't say definitively. I don't want to. I haven't got any evidence to back it up. Until I visit there myself, I walk on that land, I can only go by what I'm shown and what I'm told. However, I have heard arguments from the flat earthers and arguments from the globers, and some of the science just doesn't add up. Things like the way radar works. We are able to measure curvature. It's been proven with a laser pointer over a very long distance with these little slits in a wooden panel or cardboard panels. We saw that. And the way radar is able to detect things beyond the horizon, beyond the supposed range of radar. Those are two different arguments for and against a flat earth. And the only way in my mind to make that make sense, that maybe both sides are right to an extent. So flat earth is alright, the earth isn't what we're told it is. And the globe is alright, the earth is round. But it's just a hell of a lot bigger. That's what I think, I'll be honest with you. That's just my thoughts. As far as other continents and things are concerned, that's on a whole other level. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share them below.
The deity has more of a look of Buddha. Never seeing the real one, I don't know, but it says it's holding out both hands with lotus flowers, which is obviously Egyptian. Around the base, there are Egyptian writings.
Of course, we look for areas that are flat, that we feel where they could have raised crops, but you got to remember, this is thousands of years ago.
In the satellite, if you look at the ground, you don't see all the trees in that particularly. But there is an obvious color change, which usually means that it was heavily trafficked. It still looks as though it is a whole different color. It's darker. You can actually see rectangles in it where possibly other buildings were. Surrounding that area that is heavily traveled, there are, by satellite, you can see the foundations of other buildings that have been there. When they were there, we don't know, but it's just interesting that all this kind of is in one area, like this was the gathering place.
6 months after, I guess it was, there was a black Suburban across the street parked. Didn't pay much attention to it. I was in my office, I could see it. I could see there was somebody in it, but then they just sat there for about 45 minutes, maybe close to an hour. The windows were all tinted. I couldn't see who was in there. And so I walked over there and got maybe 15 feet away from them. The windows went down, the smoke came out, and then they went back up and they took off. There were no plates on this vehicle.
And there are certain photographs that we looked at that they aren't even on the internet anymore. They used to be on the internet showing parts of Grand Canyon, but right now they've put pictures there. I could pull those in and look at them, the minute details about it, and find things on them, and you can't do that anymore. You can pull it in so far and then they have it blurred.
We have found that now if we see something, if we're able to catch something, that we have to take a picture of it right then. If you go back within 30 minutes, it's gone. Very interesting.
I found kind of a bust that was in the side of the wall that somebody carved in. My husband found kind of a statue that's at the point of a canyon down. Now, these don't look like the statues you see in Egypt.
However, the statue, the base on it, what caught my eye on it was the shape of it. And it's the shape that I'd seen in pictures of different statues in Egypt, and it matched. Yeah, and there's a statue that's been weathered for a lot of years on top of it.
After we blew the statue up is when we really started finding things. We found on the one shoulder there's the all-seeing eye. In the thigh area there are some buildings that it looks like hieroglyph buildings. To the side of that there is the head, the shape of a head of a pharaoh. We assumed that it was probably painted at one time.
We just call these people or these statues whatever we want.
Right next to him is what looks like the queen, and she has her hat on with a medallion in the front of it, like they used to have snakes there. I don't know if they had any other thing at that time. You can see that her ear's been carved. You can see where the eyes, they had poked something to make the eyes at one time.
They are hiding something in the Grand Canyon, right? The more we see about the Grand Canyon, the more I'm convinced that they are trying to hide something from us. We're not even allowed to fly drones over it, fly above it. There's no entry zones, restricted areas. Now, hypothetically speaking, if we were to pull off something like with the Area 51 event where a whole bunch of people turned up and they thought, you know, the more people that go, they won't be able to stop everyone. Get 10,000 people to turn up and try and gain access to these different areas at the same time. Who's going to stop them? Pretty risky though. And I say that for entertainment purposes only, of course. It makes you wonder, right? What the hell is going on there? What don't they want us knowing? Maybe it has something to do with the origins of the human race. Maybe giants? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
What does the Bible actually tell us about Lucifer? This commenter thinks a whole lot. He says Lucifer was part of the Godhead, but not God. He was an anointed cherub. He was music leader. Read Isaiah 14:12 KJV. He wanted to be God. He led a rebellion. And boy, some of that's not even in Isaiah 14, but now that we're on the topic, let's examine what Isaiah 14 is actually talking about, because most people who've actually read the Bible know that Isaiah 14 is not about Satan at all, and Lucifer is not a name for Satan. For starters, Isaiah 14 starts a section in verse 3 that is specifically addressed to the king of Babylon, although most people assume that this is actually the king of Assyria, who also ruled over Babylon at that time period. It says, "When the Lord has given you rest from pain and turmoil and the hard service with which you were made to serve, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon." So this is clearly a taunt that is for the king of Babylon after his demise or after his downfall, and it has to be intelligible to the king of Babylon, which is why almost all scholars agree that when we get to the section of text where it talks about Lucifer, it's not referring to Jewish mythology, it's not referring to a character that we call Satan, it's referring to something that the king of Babylon had to have known. Now, if you're reading in the KJV, we find something very interesting in verse 12. "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?" So, if you're just reading this in the KJV, you might be inclined to think that Lucifer is a name of somebody or something. But what is it a name of, and is this even a name? Well, if you read it in Hebrew or in a good English translation, it becomes more clear. Now, it says in the actual Hebrew, Eik Nefalta Mishmaim Chalel ben Shakar. And in a literal English rendering, which we have on the right side, that means, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O day star, son of the morning?" That's interesting. There's no Lucifer in there. What happened is Lucifer is the Latin translation of Chalel, which means "O shining one" or "bright one," or in some translations it'll just say "the morning star." And the reason why we see things like a morning star is because the morning star, or Chalel, was associated with the planet Venus, and this would have been known to the king of Assyria or to the king of Babylon, because Venus, personified as a deity, was something that was abundant both in Canaanite literature and in Assyrian literature. And of course, the ancient Jews interpret it as such. If you read the ancient Aramaic Targums, they have a Midrashic translation that reads, "How art thou cast down from on high, who wast shining among the sons of men as the star Venus among the stars. Thou art dashed down to the earth, who wast a slaughterer among the nations." So in the Jewish translation given in the Aramaic Targums, they understood that the morning star was a reference to Venus, the deity Venus, and the Babylonian king who slaughtered the nations. And among the Jewish commentaries, we see much interpretation involving specific Babylonian kings that this would be referring to. This is in the comment by Rashi. It says, Lucifer, the morning star, this is Venus, which gives light as the morning star, Hillel, being derived from Ya'al, to shed light. This is the lamentation over the heavenly prince of Babylon who will fall from heaven. So there is no Jewish interpretation in writing anywhere that would lead us to believe that the Jews even thought that this was about Satan. This is a Christian invention to invent a backstory for Satan that just isn't in the book. If you have a copy of the Dictionary of Deity and Demons in the Bible, you can find the entry on Hillel, and you can read about the crossover of Hillel and the planet Venus. But in short, Hillel, if there's a connection to the deity or to the planet Venus here, it is further explained by the next phrase, Ben Shakar. Ben Shakar is an important phrase because Shakar is the deity of the dawn or of the morning. He was the brother of Shalim, the deity of the evening. And so what we have here is a very interesting reference. We've got a reference to Hillel ben Shakar, which is just the shining one, son of the morning. And if we take these as deified references, it makes a lot more sense because there is a narrative in Canaanite mythology that sounds an awful lot like what we read in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah says this to the king of Babylon, how you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of the dawn, how you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly, on the heights of Zaphon. I will ascend to the tops of the clouds, and I will make myself like the Most High. But as it turns out, this is not about Satan. This is not found in the Bible. This is quite literally about a Canaanite deity that tried to ascend to the Most High position, which is on Baal's throne. Baal was the head of the pantheon, and this deity, which was associated with the planet Venus, his name was Athtar. Athtar, while Baal was gone, while he was in the underworld and deceased for a time period, tried to take over his throne. And where's his throne? Well, his throne was on Mount Zaphon, which is why it says, I will sit on the Mount of Assembly on the heights of Zaphon. That was Baal's mountain. That was Baal's place of assembly. That's where all the deities got together, which is why it says, I will raise my throne above the stars of God. So what we actually have here is not a reference at all to Satan. We've got a reference to a deity in the pantheon named Athtar. And you can read about Athtar in this book, The Ugaritic Baal Cycle by Mark S. Smith. And there's 2 volumes. This is only the first volume. Now, in the backdrop of Athtar, he tries to take over the throne of Baal, and he fails. He's not even tall enough to reach the footstool of the throne, and he's kind of laughed out of it, and then he's cast down to the ground in shame, which is why we see that imagery about the king of Babylon. He tries to take over the throne in this analogy. He tries to elevate himself above everybody else, but he fails, and then he's going to be cast down to the ground. He's going to be cut down from the mountain, just like Athtar, because of his failure, which is, again, remembering that this is a taunt for when he is failed. Isaiah says, when the king of Babylon is defeated and the Lord rescues you, take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. Would the king of Babylon know anything about the Jewish mythological theology surrounding this satanic figure that didn't develop until after the Persian period? Of course not. Would he know the legend of Athtar? Yes, because even in Babylonian mythology there was a similar story, and guess what? Greek mythology has another one just like it. So this is a common trope, that there's somebody in this mythology that's attempting to take over the throne of the highest deity in the pantheon, and they fail, and they become a laughingstock. And that's why this is relevant to the king of Babylon, and that's why the prophet Isaiah is not mentioning Satan. Satan's not mentioned here, and Lucifer is not a name for Satan. This is just using the mythology of the king against him.
Okay, that's a lot to digest. Do you know what? I really like that guy's content because he actually offers the source in real time. It's not just a little prefix at the end of where he may have got it from. He shares it right there and then. The literal translations as well. I'd love to interview this guy and pick his brain, even if it was just for 20 minutes. Fascinating stuff. It's amazing how the language translations have distorted so much about people's religions and beliefs and the way that they go about practicing them today. It really does make you wonder. There was an interesting comment on one of my videos the other day about the mention of the Holy Ghost in the Bible. In the 1611 King James version of the Bible, the Holy Ghost appears over 500 times, but in the New King James version, the Holy Ghost does not appear at all. And they were debating with me whether that's the case. And I asked them, why do you believe the modernized version, which has been translated over and over again, over the original, the 1611? I pose that question now to you, the community. Again, this isn't a slight against your faith, it's a genuine question. I keep hearing a lot about how this is all about interpretation. I think interpretation is a really dangerous thing when you're talking about faith. If there is a specific path that one needs to walk to have an affinity with the creator, I think it should be hard set in stone. And I mean, like, it really should be very clear. There should not be anything left to interpretation. Surely this God is supposed to be a jealous God. Why would he leave anything up to interpretation? It's just a question, not a slight. I really wish to encourage this conversation in the comment section, but please keep it civil. We're just trying to get to the bottom of things, open up our minds, bring about awareness, expand consciousness. But that just about does it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed the clips. If you did, drop a like on the video and subscribe for future content, which I post every single day at 8 PM UK time. And if you haven't already done so, please join the Discord server, the link for which you can find in the video description. But in the meantime, stay well, stay safe, and stay curious. Until next time.